Good morning. For a while, I've been promising this series on real estate and why I think it's a phenomenal investment compared to others. And I gave an analogy right at the beginning. I said that real estate is able to do so many things, whereas most investment classes are only able to do one or two or three or four or five things well. Real estate does quite a few things well. And I'm going to give this analogy again. I've heard it once said, I don't even know if this is true, but I've heard it said once that if you take humans, and the human can choose the length of race and the pace or speed of race, that they can win against any other animal. And I thought that's really interesting. So like a cheetah can run very, very, very fast for a short period of time. So if you set a slower pace, longer race, then humans could maybe win it. Or horses, they only have a certain gait. They can gallop or they can trot, but they can't go kind of in between. So if you choose kind of that in between pace, then humans can win again. Now again, I don't know if it's true. But I like this idea that humans, even though we don't seem all that great, and we're not talked about as one of these great animals in many ways, other than our brains, right? But actually, physically, we're phenomenal. We're able to adapt. There's so much ability to adapt in humans that it makes us very good at many things, okay? And I think that real estate is a little bit like this. It's not the sexiest animal out there, right? It's not a tiger or a lion or something like that. It's not talked about a lot, and actually I think that that's one of its advantages. So today what I want to do is compare stocks to real estate. Now, obviously, this is a short video. I'm not going to get into everything that we could possibly talk about, but I'd love to include dialogue here. If you've got a disagreement, if you want to challenge me on anything, please do so. I'd love to talk with you. I'd love to engage with you online and think this through. To me, when I hear people talk about stocks, when I see analysts talk about stocks, I hear a few things over and over and over and over again as to why the biggest advantages to stocks or why we should invest in stocks. One of the biggest advantages is liquidity. Liquidity. It's easy to get in and out, okay? The second advantage that I hear is diversification, that you can diversify quite easily and very simply and quite quickly. Everything can happen very quickly. That it's aligned with what was I saying? Liquidity again. There's also, I'm looking at my notes here, there's also a ton of information available for stocks, isn't there? There's an amazing amount of information. You can read a ton of information about a company or about its management team. You can dive into this research and go into it quite extensively. One of the biggest advantages, in my opinion, now this is a negative thing that I'm saying here, one of the biggest advantages is that you need no self-control and you need no long-term goals in order to get into stocks. Stocks can be a very short game. Now again, I think that that's a negative, but it's actually one of the positives. I think that this is why one of the reasons stocks become so popular, because it's so easy to get into it. And people get stars in their eyes and get excited about baubles or quick money. Real estate, let's think about those advantages and compare it to real estate, okay? So real estate, is it liquid? Well, people talk all the time, real estate is illiquid. You can't just sell it today in the next 5 minutes. But is that really true? I mean, yes and no. Yes, I'm not able to sell a property in 30 seconds or 10 seconds or 5 seconds. But you can access the majority of the money you have in a real estate property immediately. You can do this through a line of credit. You can do this in other ways, but the line of credit is the most common way. And you can access money in a line of credit just as fast, if not faster, than stocks. The difference is you can't access all of your cash. And to me, that's an advantage because again, you're making decisions slower. You're thinking more long term. But it is a disadvantage as well. The other advantage is that there are no tax consequences when you access that money through a line of credit. When you sell a stock, it's very liquid, but you pay taxes on whatever happened, whatever you made. In real estate, you can get these massive gains. You can take money out very quickly, and you don't have any taxes. That's a massive advantage. So when you measure them up, I go, yes, absolutely, stocks are more liquid. But real estate, I think, actually has the bigger advantage there. What about diversification? People talk about the diversification of stocks, but really, if you look at it, and again, it's true that you can diversify in stocks, but when the market goes down, it affects almost all stocks. Whereas if you look at the U.S., I'll use the U.S. as an example. In 2008 and 9, when the stock market crashed, when the whole geopolitical system changed, and everyone was hurting across the world, there were certain areas of industry of real estate in the U.S. that never went down. Texas is a great advantage, where Texas consistently did well. And yes, there are certain real estate areas that did poorly, but you can diversify. That's what I'm saying, basically, is you can diversify. So this advantage of stocks and diversification, you can get that in real estate. You can diversify in different asset classes in real estate. There's commercial office, commercial retail, commercial industrial. There's self-storage. There's car washes. There's residential, multi-residential. You can diversify in certain cities and rural, urban. You can do a crazy amount of stuff in real estate. You can land bank. You can. The list is kind of endless of what you can do. So again, I don't see an advantage of stocks over real estate in that way. I think you can diversify in both areas. The third thing that I said was there's lots of information available. So yeah, that's true. It's easy to get in. And that's always my fourth point. It's almost too easy to get in. So we don't often think through everything. And I'm not saying some people don't. There are some people that do, but very few that get into stocks. There are stats consistently that show like over 85% of people that invest in stocks lose money over time. It's a crazy amount of people. Now, with real estate, it's not easy to get information. You have to talk to owners. You've got to dig. You've got to get to know people. You've got to create relationship. It's a longer process. Now, is that an advantage or a disadvantage? It depends on what you're going for. To me, the greatest advantage, Warren Buffett has said this a lot, that because of the information available in the stock market, it's actually more difficult to get a really good deal at times because everyone knows about it. In real estate, there's something really interesting that happens because you can become an expert at a local market, because you can know about a single property and then what's happening in that property. There's not as much information available. There's not as much demand in some ways for that individual property. You can get smoking deals. You can get very, very, very good deals in real estate that are, I won't say that they don't exist, but it's very difficult to get in the stock market. Okay? Now I'm going to talk about real estate and maybe the biggest advantage that real estate has over stocks, and that is control. Let's talk about risk for a minute. What's the risk of investing your money in stocks versus the risk of investing in real estate? Well, people would say, well, real estate can do this or stocks can do that. The fact is that the risk of putting your money in any investment is that you lose it. That's the risk. Generally speaking, okay, there's some nuances there, but generally speaking, the risk is that you lose your money, okay, period. And yes, real estate's a physical asset, so it's more difficult to lose all your money in it, but still, you could lose your money in either one, okay, especially if it's leveraged, and you can leverage either one. But in real estate, something that happens is you can control what happens within that investment. It's like your own business on some level. You can control who is there. You can control who is in the property with tenants. You can control how much leverage you have. You can control when you lock in insurance or when you lock in interest rates. You got so much control with real estate. When to buy, when to sell. That's the same in both. But in stocks, you are investing in a business. You're a small fish in a very big pond. And you have almost no control. There are times where there's a freeze put on stock markets. This is common in history over many countries. There's a freeze where you cannot trade. You cannot trade when something extreme happens. And the more extreme the event, the more likely it is that things are going to be frozen. In real estate, there are very few times where things are frozen. But again, I would suggest that the strength of stocks, of moving in and out, and the quickness of transactions is actually more an advantage of real estate, because you have to slow things down, because you have to make decisions over a course of time. You think about them more. Less emotion enters into the picture. Not that it doesn't. It enters the picture in every investment class, but there's less emotion. You make decisions over a longer period of time. I told about tax advantages. If you own a stock for 50 years, you don't have to pay any taxes. That's true. And if you own real estate for 50 years, but what is the likelihood that you're going to buy and sell a stock versus hold it? In real estate, that's easy to do. And you can still access your money. If you have a stock, let's say it's worth $100 today, it's worth $1 million tomorrow, you can't access any of that without tax advantage or without tax consequences. Whereas in real estate, you can access a lot of that money without tax consequences. And this is something really, really, really unique about real estate. The reason I'm comparing it to stocks today is because that's the area that most people talk about. They talk about stocks. That's where you invest. That's how people should invest. And I'm saying, you know what? I disagree. Real estate can compare in a lot of the advantages, but it also has some significant advantages, tax advantages, and control that stocks cannot compare with. It's very difficult for a stock to compare with those things in accessing cash. Let me know what you think. I'd love to continue this conversation. I'm going to be talking about gold in a future week here. I'm going to be talking about other investment classes, even compared to business, and how it compares, and why I think, again, real estate is this very diverse, versatile asset class that you can do so much with, depending on your personality, depending on what you want to do, depending on how much money you have. And maybe that's the last thing I'll leave you with, is often people talk about getting into stocks is you can start off with $5 or $10 or a small amount of money. And that is true. You can get into stocks for a smaller amount of money. That's absolutely true. Is that an advantage or a disadvantage? Is it not an advantage to save your money and to think through what you're going to be doing with it, and to invest in your own education and learn about it? And then when you purchase something, you're completely ready for it. Is that not an advantage? Again, I'll leave it up to you. Think through it. Feel free to engage with me on this. I love talking about real estate compared to other asset classes because of how we typically think about something versus how investors think about something. Now, people have made money in stocks. I'm not bellyaching about stocks today. I've invested in stocks. I've lost money in stocks. But I think that some of the lessons I had to learn was based on my own psychology. That when I slow everything down, I typically do better. And with stocks, that can be done. Very few people are skilled at it. Real estate forces us to slow down, which I love about it. Enjoy your week.